Shakespeare Hill's newsletter, the 25th of August, 2026. The stories we tell ourselves. We don't experience life as it is, we experience it as the stories we tell ourselves. In Morgan Housel's The Psychology of Money, he writes that the more you want something to be true, the more likely you are to believe a story that overestimates the odds of it being true. It doesn't matter how educated you are. It doesn't matter how well intentioned you are. If you want a particular thing to be true, particularly if it's convenient, if it's comfortable, and if it lets you off the hook in some way, your brain will find a way to believe it. We tell ourselves stories all the time. Some are grounded in fact, some are grounded in convenience, and the scary thing is, from the inside, they feel identical. When it comes to food, we hear this one often. I don't need to buy organic, grass-fed, or regenerative. It doesn't really make a difference. I get it. It costs more, it requires more thought, and if you tell yourself it doesn't matter, you can stop thinking about it. But it does matter. To your health, to the land, to the animals, to the communities that depend on farms like ours. These aren't opinions. They are outcomes we live and measure every single day. I'm not saying this to guilt anyone. I'm saying it because I think most people, given the full picture, would choose differently. The problem isn't values, it's the stories we've been given. By advertising, by habit, by the sheer convenience of not looking too closely. The power of stories should not be underestimated. Maxwell Maltz was a plastic surgeon who spent decades transforming people's appearances, only to discover that the surgery rarely fixed what was actually broken. He had patients who, after operations that by every objective measure was successful, still couldn't see improvement. The problem wasn't their face, it was the story they had constructed about themselves, so deep, so long held, that reality couldn't penetrate it. Maltz went on to argue that our self-image, the story we tell ourselves about who we are, is the single most powerful determinant of our happiness, our success, our confidence, and the quality of our lives. We have the power to literally rewire our own minds for good or for bad, which is why the stories we choose to tell ourselves matter so much. We are farmers. By nature, we see in black and white. You have a cow, you have a bull, biology is biology. There is true and there is false. There is right and there is wrong. But we've also learned, sometimes the hard way, that truth alone doesn't produce belief. We've watched people choose products that are cheaper, worse for their health, worse for the land, worse for the animals, not because they don't care, but because the story they've been sold is more convincing than the facts in front of them. You can have all the right answers and still lose the argument if someone else has a better story. We've had to learn to wear a different pair of glasses, to understand that being right isn't enough, that farming and communicating are two completely different skills, and we have to get better at both. So this September, we're going to show you, not just tell you. You're reading this newsletter, which means you already have some level of belief in what we do. But the customers who only buy in store haven't read this far, who don't follow us on Instagram, who have no way of seeing what actually happens on this farm, our commitment to this land is invisible. So this month we want to go the extra mile. For every bottle of milk sold this September, we will pick up one piece of rubbish from our local roads and waterways, and we will document every single one. The idea isn't a new one. We borrowed it gratefully from Beau Miles, an Australian adventurer and filmmaker who runs his local roads picking up rubbish as he goes. And from my own mum and dad, who trained for the overland track by walking the length of our road in intervals over 2 months, filling bags of rubbish as they went. A total of 4 one-ton bulker bags of rubbish collected over 52 kilometres. We want to give back. We want to show you, not just tell you, what our commitment actually looks like. Don't be beholden to the stories you've inherited. Fact check them, be prepared to be wrong, and then deliberately, consciously choose the story that you want to build your life around. Because the story you tell yourself about food, about health, about the kind of life you want to live, shapes every choice you make. It shapes who you become. We don't experience life as it is. We experience it as the stories we tell ourselves. Choose your stories well. Farm philosophy. There is no good or bad without us. There is only perception. There is the event itself and the story we tell ourselves about what it means. Ryan Holiday from the Daily Stoic. With gratitude, Amelia Gunningham and the whole Shakespeare Hills team.